Oh, sorry, my mute was on. I said some things and you didn't hear me. Welcome, everyone. I see Elizabeth is here, so I turned off the funky music. And Elizabeth, your question or your comment was something about 500 witnesses. Yes, I hear that a lot, and so I'm going to answer this way. I don't believe the Bible is God's word. I'm sure you can understand that because I don't believe in God. And so if you can understand that about me, then you realize then that just because the Bible says something doesn't necessarily make it true. And if you understand that, then I can go forwards with asking you the question, if, for example, the Quran said that 500 witnesses saw Gabriel give the words of Allah to Muhammad, that didn't happen, but let's say it did, and it was written down in a book, would you automatically believe it? And my guess is, Elizabeth, you would say no. You wouldn't believe it. But why not? It's written in a book. But it's not God's word. The Bible is, the Quran isn't. I know, I hear you, Elizabeth, but if we're using these little pieces of information as evidence, then the question is, okay, what type of evidence is it? Is it evidence that 500 people actually saw Jesus? Or is it evidence that it's a claim that 500 people did? So, Elizabeth, I hope what I just said made sense to you. If you're coming from the perspective, like I am, that not everything in the Bible is true or perfect or right, some things maybe are. But when you're coming from my perspective, just because the Bible says something doesn't make it true, just because the Quran says something doesn't make it true. You and I are probably in agreement on lots of things about the Quran or the Vedas. We're probably on the same page on a lot of that stuff. So I hope that makes sense. And as far as, I think you mentioned artifacts. I keep an eye on the time. You said something about 500 artifacts or something like that. And yeah, that's evidence. I agree. But let me try to explain it this way. I think you said 500, but let's just use that number. 500 different artifacts have been found to 5,000. Okay, sorry. 5,000 artifacts used to confirm, let's say, the Bible. If I was to say, what if that was 10,000? Would that make the Bible twice as true? Or what if it was only 50? Would it make it 100th true? 1/10, 100th, 100th. You said 5,000. And I'm sure you would say, no, it's true. So just because you find archaeological evidence doesn't mean all of it's true. I'm sure, maybe you're not aware of this, but there's historical archaeological artifacts for the Quran and other world beliefs as well. Does that make those scriptures true? I'm sure we'd say no. I believe the Bible is the inspired word of God. Why? Why do you, Elizabeth, do you believe the Bible is the inspired word of God? What's your primary reason? My guess is it has nothing to do with the artifacts. My guess is it has to do with God touching you, influence your life, and a personal experience. I could be wrong. You have to realize that some of the evidence used in the Bible goes against society at the time. Women back in those days were not deemed legal eyewitnesses, yet Jesus revealed. Elizabeth, I don't think that's true. I think from the history I've seen that they were deemed legal eyewitnesses, but they were, not as, what's the word? Worthy in other areas of life? Because I've experienced his work in love. Yes, that was my guess, Elizabeth. But I hope you understand, Elizabeth, that for a guy like me, And please, please, please understand that I'm not taking anything away from your experience. But I have talked to so many people online and in real life who have told me about their personal experiences and yet don't believe in the God you do. Does that make their God true? I think you and I would be agreed again that no, it doesn't. So, you're talking about the women again. Here's one thing for you to consider. Now, please, I'm not asking you to agree with me, Elizabeth. In fact, I'm quite sure you won't, and you may never, ever will. But I just want you to understand me, okay? That I want you to understand where I'm coming from. And so when I read that women were, let's say, the first to the tomb in Mark, to me, that is playing into the narrative, the story of the first shall be last and the last shall be first. Blessed are the meek. The weak shall be strong. It is a literary technique. I view the last third of Mark as a screenplay, a passion narrative. There's only one God, Elizabeth. That's what you said. Elizabeth, I heard something the other day that I thought was quite interesting. It was said by a Jewish rabbi, and I've used it once on one of my videos before. But do you realize that if the New Testament is God's word, that means the Old Testament has to be? I'm sure you would agree with that. If the New Testament's true in God's word, then the Old Testament has to be. But would you agree with me that it doesn't work the other way around? In other words, the Old Testament could be true and the New Testament false. In other words, maybe the Jews are right. And if they are, Elizabeth, you do not believe in one God. In fact, if you worship Jesus, according to Orthodox Judaism, you are an idolater. You are doing the worst sin ever. So I hope you're right, Elizabeth, because if you're not, and if the concept of hell is true, you may be in worse shape than me. Too harsh? Too soon? Okay, I got to make sure Mike has the... Mike, where are you? We're Facebook friends, right, Mike? So if you're here, I will post the link. You know the link, I think. That rhymes. But I will post it. If you're listening, Mike, I will post it, in case you forget, in the messenger of Facebook. I don't know how else to get it to you. The Trinity is God the Father, God. Yes, Elizabeth, I was a born-again believer for 30 years. I'm quite familiar with... I would be highly suspicious. I would be highly doubtful there's anything you could say about Christianity that I don't already know. I don't mean that as an insult, but... yeah. I think what I said, I'm pretty confident in that. Elizabeth, do you go to Calvary Chapel? That denomination? Because I used to go to that church too. There's Mike. Okay, Mike. Sound check.
Howdy.
Yes, I can hear you. Let me bring you in here. I'm talking.
Oh gosh, hold on a second. I need to.
Need a
Okay.
what?
Am I still there?
Yeah, you're still here.
Okay, good. All right. Sorry, I need to sort out my computer junk. Give me just a sec.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just setting you up here.
Okay.
I'm actually talking to, I think, one of your church members, maybe? Right
Yeah,
now?
I think you are.
Elizabeth?
Yes. My head looks extremely large compared to your tiny little head over there.
Do you have a camera that can zoom out and zoom in?
No, I'd have a cheaper one. Yeah.
Yeah, you do look like...
I'm a lot smarter than you right now, Doug.
You look like God, and I look like a mere mortal.
Oh, see, that's the problem with your Christianity. You thought God had a giant head. That's Mormonism.
Can you back it up? the camera or no?
No, I'm actually not that big in my camera. So there's something on your end that's zooming me, I think.
Well, no, it's in a pier. Maybe.
That's my theory because I checked it earlier and it was like, it was zoomed out a lot more than that. Yeah.
Huh.
I'm going to go ahead and post this link to my different social medias here so people can watch.
Okay. I'm trying to think. Well, I guess I could make myself big. How's that?
That would at least be fair.
I don't know if I like that though. Well, I'll leave it like that, sort of in between. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Getting better at this each time.
Actually, while you're doing that, I'll introduce. Well, so Mike and I have known each other for a couple months now. I found Mike. Did I find you or did you find me?
You found me.
I forget if I found you on YouTube or on Facebook. Probably YouTube.
On YouTube, you commented on a video on contradictions in the Bible.
Yes. And for all the Christians listening, my comment was probably nothing what you would expect an atheist to comment on. Because I didn't even mention any of the contradictions, really.
Oh, I thought you were an atheist right away.
Oh yeah, well, it's what I did comment. I think made it obvious, but it was not the typical comment that because a lot of atheists like to just pick apart. Oh, but this says this and this says that. They don't realize that that's not the real issue. In my opinion, it's not the real issue.
Yeah.
The real issue is the epistemology of it all. And but anyhow, so that's how I found you, and then I guess you realized right away that I wasn't a troll.
Yeah.
And then you looked at maybe one or two of my YouTube videos and you thought, oh, this guy might be a good guy to talk to. And
yeah, I'm trying to move my camera further away for you because it's just so weird. My ginormous head.
And so then we had the first talk on, what did we talk about the first time? The second time was morality. Oh,
the first time we talked about if I have good reason for believing what I believe. Right. And the second time was morality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. Yeah. So the first time, and I challenged you on the idea that doubt is a virtue, which I maintain. If doubt is a virtue in the sense in which you use it is not the truth. But
I think where we ended up on doubt as a virtue is that you agreed with me as long as you're not doubting the Bible.
not even close. Not even close.
Okay, well, we won't rehash that because the topic tonight is homosexuality. And the reason why we're even talking about this is because Mike did a few videos, what was it, a month ago on homosexuality?
Actually, I did a 4-part series on homosexuality over a year ago, and it's on my YouTube channel. And that is where the meat of the content I have on homosexuality is. It's really a lot of detail and well over 100 hours of research went into that. And the second 2 videos deal with the things you'd be more interested in, probably the secular issues, health issues, statistics and studies and science and all that. And then I posted recently a video on Romans 1 where I also addressed homosexuality, but not in as much detail.
Okay. So that's one reason why I wanted to talk about it. And the second reason was because of the Disney movie that came out recently. I actually had an issue with that movie, not me with the content of it, but because, as you know, my wife's a believer, and she had hesitations about it, so we had a long talk about that. So it was a interesting conversation with my wife, and it was and I just saw it actually on Sunday, and I loved it. I thought it was a great movie, but that's the second reason why I wanted to talk about this issue. Mm-hmm. But first of all, what I want to say is I want to agree with you on a lot of things. I want to find common ground. Okay. And
I would like for you to agree with me on a lot of things too.
And where I think our common ground is I agree with you that the Bible clearly teaches that homosexuality is a sin.
I thought you would.
There's no pushback there. Mm-hmm. And I think that you and other Christians who think that homosexuality is a sin have the full right to say so. Publicly, privately, everywhere.
Okay.
I have no beef with that. at all. I have no beef with you guys even protesting gay marriage and all that sort of thing.
Okay.
I don't think your view that represents a lot of Christianity should be silenced at all. I'm not one of those guys who says, oh, this is a type of hate speech. No, I'm not that person. And anybody who says that about you, I would support you in your right to express your views. What else? And I agree, and we're probably both on the same page when it comes to the topics of compassion on how we treat this issue. I don't claim to know everything and not even close to anything about this issue. You've done 100 hours of research, you said. Kudos to you for that. So that's hopefully the common ground that we have. And I guess the way I want to start this is how would you even define homosexuality? We made definitions of morality on that second video. Maybe we should define what homosexuality actually is.
Okay, so that's a great place to start because that's
because it's not clear cut all the time, is it?
No. So when I say homosexual, do I mean a person who's acting out a lifestyle of homosexuality, or do I mean a person who's born with certain proclivities, or do I mean a person has certain desires, whether or not they're acting them out or whether or not they're born with it? That's kind of the three different ways I hear it used. I never ever use it to refer to somebody who's born with certain proclivities that is supposed to be who they are and they're discovering their real identity kind of thing, because I don't think that's in its entirety. I don't think that's the truth. I use it either to refer to somebody who's actively like practicing homosexual behaviors, or I use it to refer to somebody if they're identifying themselves as homosexual. I'll call them homosexual. That's fine. Okay. So, but I tend to focus it more on as the lifestyle. Does the sin issue become a lifestyle? Then you're homosexual.
Okay. Yeah, I can go with that definition. That's fine with me. So my first question to you is, why don't other Christians see it like you see it? Like there in your church, I'm guessing, there's a lot of Christian denominations that will have homosexual pastors or priests or whatever, and marry homosexual couples. What are they missing, do you think?
I mean, it's a big question. Lots of different answers. There's lots of different reasons for people to disagree with me on that. Yeah. Some of them think that they don't hold to the Bible. A lot of them, in fact, don't. They don't hold to inerrancy. They don't hold to the authority of scriptures. They don't hold to that sort of thing. They hold to like some sort of moral progressivism, like the idea that you sort of draw a moral line in the Bible and then keep going out of the Bible into the future and sort of project what you think the Bible would say if it was allowed to say it. It's sort of use your imagination to fill in the gaps, like that kind of thing, which is, I think, and you would probably agree with me, I think that's a pretty cheesy way to treat.
Have you had conversations? Have you had a lot of these conversations, not with atheists, but actually your fellow Christians about this topic who disagree with you?
I try to. They don't usually want to talk to me about it. So, in my experience,
wow.
I have. I've appealed to people. Hey, can we go out and get lunch? Can we talk about this? But I'm able to talk about it without getting mad at people, without calling people names or any kind of, stuff. But that's not always the case. So more often than not, I'm not able to talk to people who disagree because they don't want to.
So really, I'm one-upping those Christians because I'm talking to you about it.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
In this area, yeah, you are. Yeah.
I guess maybe, do they kind of take that compassionate route that it just doesn't feel right? Do they base it on more feelings, you think?
You have guys like, have you heard of Matthew Vines?
No.
There's a guy named Matthew Vines who has something called the Reformation Project. And their goal is to train people up on how to change the Christian theology of homosexuality. They have like conferences and then they train you up and then you go out and you spread throughout the world into different churches and you try to change what they believe. So he's one of like the figureheads of, at least at the moment, of the modern like pro-gay Christian movement. So you could use him as an example, and I actually talk about a lot of his stuff in my video series. Shameless plug, and 4-part series, Homosexuality, Speaking the Truth in Love. There you go. But this guy, what he does is he does an emotional plea. He says, like, does God really want them to be alone forever? Does he really want them to be lonely forever? You know, Adam and Eve, they were in the garden, and God said before Eve was there that it's not good that man should be alone. And what you're doing as a pastor is you're telling these people they have to live alone and be alone and die alone and be miserable and not be happy. And so he starts with a position of, I could not accept that kind of theology. So to put it this way, it's basically totally distorting the traditional Christian view, making it look evil and then rejecting it because it's evil. But it's a straw man.
Like when I was living in Canada, oh, maybe I shouldn't say this publicly. Scratch that. Based on your definition of homosexuality,
yeah,
if there were two people in your church who basically confess Jesus Christ as their Lord, love Jesus, but they live together, two women,
mm-hmm.
and they actually, if pressed, they would admit to you that they have natural, or not, let's get rid of the word natural, they have desires for each other, but they've never acted upon them.
Mm-hmm.
They have no desire to get married, no desire to have kids, but they've basically, their life experiences are being shared on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
According to your definition of homosexuality, they're not homosexuals, and you would have no problem with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really, really just the specific sexual behaviors. In fact, that's what, I mean, homosexual, in this sense, the sexual is talking about sex.
But even that, like, so where do you draw the line there? Like, let's say that same couple I'm describing, those two women who love Jesus, but they walk into your church hand in hand. They're holding hands.
Yeah.
Still okay?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, that's like a total cultural issue, holding hands. I mean, if this couple of girlfriends, so to speak, but in the pure sense, and they like to hold hands, I don't have a problem with that. I know people who do this, and most of them are not Americans.
Where would you draw the line where you would say it's now sin? Like kissing?
Yeah. So, well, and there's obviously people who can kiss on the lips. They're not related. It's not sexual. So is it a sexual type holding hands? Is it a sexual type kissing? Is there some element of this that's sexual? And I should throw out the disclaimer for anybody watching that this is probably not little kid friendly conversation we're having today.
Yeah.
And they should probably not watch this.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think I've ever seen someone under 18 watch or comment, but who knows?
Yeah. Well, with my name in the title of the video, I'm not sure who else might see it. So.
Yeah, and I promise to keep this clean and so forth. And you've seen my videos. I don't use foul language or anything. But because my concern is that if you are defining something as sin, one has to know what that actually is. Like, because some people I'm sure a lot of your church members would feel very uncomfortable if they saw two women walk in, want to become members of the church. They're holding hands regularly, even kissing each other on the cheek, living together. But they promise you, no, we're not having sex. We're not, that's where it stops. My guess is a lot of people in your church would be uncomfortable with that, but you would say it's not sin.
Yeah. In the scenario you're describing, yes, that's not sin.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's true that with any sin issue, you can kind of describe scenarios where you get to this sort of gray area of, okay, where does it eventually then become sin? And I don't doubt that we might struggle to define that particular area. And it would be wise for Christians to try to just avoid that area then, if that's the case. That's wisdom. But that's not to say that there's no such thing as any sort of, there's no line, because I might struggle to define it at certain points.
What would you say to a Christian who says they're homosexual? So you just take their word for it. And they say, I love Jesus. I believe he died for my sins, rose the third day.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to practice homosexuality.
Yeah. Oh, that breaks my heart. I know people in that position.
So what do you say to them? Like, do you?
The scripture says, "My brethren, do not be deceived," and then it gives a list. None of these people will inherit the kingdom of God. The list it includes adulterers, it includes perjurers, it includes thieves, it includes homosexuals. And so somebody who's living a life of practicing sin of any kind, but this is not a struggle. This is something you accept and embrace. This is who I am and I love it and I think it's fine. I will not be able to, and hear me carefully on this, I'm wording it carefully on purpose. I can have no confidence in their salvation because the scripture tells me that someone practicing these things is not.
Do these people that you've talked to, do they actually believe in hell or no?
Yeah.
They do?
The ones I'm thinking of, yeah.
Okay. See, that is powerful to me because if you have Christians who believe in a literal hell, I'm sure they believe that hell's bad, but yet this desire in them is so strong that they're willing to risk it or do it anyhow.
Well, to them, they're not risking it. To them, they're the ones I'm thinking of. They're not risking it. They're simply saying, "I think that this is okay. I think the Bible's right." They've heard the propaganda from Matthew Vines, these types of people, and they've accepted it and embraced it. They think it's true.
Okay, so they don't really believe that they're going to hell. Okay.
Yeah, I know a gentleman who he came out. A guy I know came out, said, "I'm not only saying, hey, I'm gay, but I'm saying that everybody should be affirming of this and that the Bible's not against it. And you guys are wrong. You just haven't read your Bible carefully enough." And I tried to talk with him about it and say, "Hey, can I talk to you about this? Because I've studied this issue a lot and I feel like we can have a friendly conversation about the facts of the matter." And he didn't return my call, didn't want to talk to me about it, which I think shows that there's perhaps a motive to say, no, I've kind of got my theology the way I want it, and I'd rather not mess with it.
Yeah, we talked about this before, but again, my problem with all of this, even if I enter your worldview, is it boils down to carrots and sticks. It's like, don't do this because you'll go to hell if you do.
Yeah, but that's a misrepresentation of the Christian view.
But is there another reason other than hell not to be a homosexual in your opinion?
Jesus said, "If you love me, obey my commands." That is the highest motive. You described this as a glorious motive in our last conversation. Love is the chief motive for a Christian. When you have grace and forgiveness of sin, love is the ultimate motive. There are consequences for sins. There are natural consequences. There's even divine consequences for sin. But it is love that is supposed to motivate us. And if I love God, then I want to follow what he says.
But I'm sure your wife loves you but still disagrees with some of the things you do, some of the choices you make. And same, definitely in my case, we disappoint the ones we love often.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we love them any less or they love us any less.
We're not saying disappoint. We're not saying we just disappoint the Lord, but we rebel against his specific commands.
Now, this is going to sound really weird.
That would not be disappointing. That's different. That's like, and let's take not your wife, but let's take your kid as an example. And you give them some rules and they intentionally rebel against those rules. That hits you both morally and personally.
Okay.
Like, I think it was wrong that you disobeyed, and it bothers me personally that you just rebuffed against the things that I told you and did what you wanted.
But this is going to sound very weird to Christians and probably to you as well, but why is rebelling against God bad?
Why is rebelling against God
Now,
bad?
I know by definition you can say it's bad because that's how I define bad, but can you give me reasons why, let's say in this particular case, choosing to be a homosexual, rebelling against God in that particular way, why is that bad?
Sure. I think there's reasons that come from the true worldview of Christianity, and there's reasons that also come that cross worldviews and even move into secularism and things like that. So from the Christian perspective, it's wrong because the scripture clearly teaches it's wrong. It's wrong because it goes against the design that God has made man in. It's wrong because God has the right to tell us what to do with our lives. He created us and he owns us. And so it's wrong for all those reasons. It's wrong because God's nature is in and of itself good, and it goes against that nature. So, I mean, these are all independent and very substantial reasons why it's wrong. It's also wrong because it harms yourself. It harms the society, and health statistics
now
have proved this.
As a unbeliever, now you're talking my language. So,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more of how it harms society.
Well, we've got even statistics like on CDC.gov that will demonstrate the health dangers of homosexuality. Have you ever looked into this kind of stuff before?
Briefly, a long time ago.
Okay. This is one of the things I did. I did my 4-part shameless plug series. The reason why I'm telling you this is because I'm hoping you might look at it, because I delivered it very thoughtfully and carefully in there. But part 3 and 4 is what you'd be interested in, Doug. Not 1 and 2. 1 and 2 is the biblical case. 3 and 4 is dealing with secular issues and that sort of thing, as well as the Supreme Court ruling. But in CDC.gov, it talks about the prevalence of all sorts of diseases that come through homosexual behavior. Men who have sex with men in particular is the most dangerous. Lesbianism has problems as well, but it's not as big of a problem for obvious reasons. The plumbing issues that happen between two men is not according to the body's design. Like, this is where feces exits the body, and you don't do this with that, so to speak.
Yeah, there's a phrase, but we won't say it.
Yeah. Well, and now I want you to know this breaks my heart, because people are harming themselves and doing these things under the deceit of sin, under the bondage of these things, and that. Anyways, I'm not dispassionate, nor am I angry. So, if you look at the actual statistics, I wonder if I could quote something to you, because I don't want to just go off the top of my head.
No, I get what you're saying. You're saying that there's very specific, unique risks in homosexuality that's not found in heterosexuality.
Okay. Well, here's a couple quick things. A third of the men who engage in regular homosexual receptive behavior, they have chronic incontinence. That's the inability of the sphincter muscle to properly hold closed. One third. Diarrhea, cramps, hemorrhoids, prostate damage, ulcers, fissures, which invite infection. These are normal things. 75% of syphilis cases in 2012 were in men who had sex with men. 75%. And that's according to CDC.gov. This is not some Christian propaganda group. This is very harmful to the body. And the men who have sex with men on an active basis is less than 2% of the population in a given year. So we're talking 75% of syphilis in less than 2% of the population. The most common disease is called amoebiasis. 25 to 40% of homosexual men are affected. There's other ones. It just breaks my heart even reading this stuff. But for HIV, there's 50,000 new infections of HIV every year. That's sad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of these happen within men who have sex with men. 78% of all new HIV infections come with men who have sex with men, which represents less than 2% of the population. Less than 2% of the population getting over 70% of the new HIV infections, you're doing something very dangerous. The HIV virus has a particular penchant for the flesh around the sphincter. It's like it's easier for it to penetrate and enter the body through that particular part of the body.
Okay, yeah,
anyway, it just goes on.
I get your point, and I understand.
You can even just go to pro-gay websites and look at the things they tell people, like, hey guys, we're trying to protect you. Watch out for this, watch out for that. For lesbians, it's increased breast cancer, it's other issues. Drinking is multiple times higher amongst lesbian women than it is amongst non. And this is all saying there's something wrong. There's something wrong. And to encourage people in this behavior that's self-destructive is not loving.
Yeah, I agree with you that there's not just homosexuality, but heterosexuality, promiscuity, that type of thing has risks and dangers as well.
All sexual sin brings pain.
And so is this an issue of saying that sort of risky behavior is the danger more so than homosexuality? Or is it that risky behavior goes along with homosexuality according to the statistics?
Well, some of it's both, I think, actually. Yeah, both of those things are true, but because some are direct results, we know this comes specifically from the sexual behaviors. Other ones just seem connected, but the statistics are something that there. I know correlation doesn't mean causation, but that doesn't mean correlation means not causation either. You know,
Yeah.
the whole thing is correlation at some point is involved, and means there's an interconnected issue here. And in this case, we see these things. The amount of promiscuity, the amount of more partners, typically. Now, there's always exceptions to these rules, but it ends up being the exception that proves the rule. Yeah. So for these reasons, I care enough about our culture and about the gay people I know to say, hey,
Well, you know,
I want to invite you out of that.
the reasons you mentioned, like this type of risky behavior, I agree with you. I guess the only point I would make is homosexuals are not alone. There's people take risky behavior all the time on other things, and I hurt for them just as much as you do when they're like. It doesn't even have to be sexual things. Like people take risks. You know, they go jumping out of planes and jumping off cliffs, and there's just people out there who do risky things. But there are homosexuals out there who've, I'm sure what I'm about to say is correct, that have been together probably 3-4 decades and
Oh yeah,
and have had none of these problems as well. So
I'm sure there's plenty of people we could find who have had one partner and they've only ever had one partner and they've been stuck with them the whole time. But that doesn't change these facts, you know?
yeah,
And so it's not just that it's risky. This is like dangerous stuff, man. And it's against nature. I mean, against the actual design of the body physically. It's not, for instance, let me ask you a question. Do you think that two men in a relationship, is that the equivalent of a man and a woman in a relationship? Are they equivalents? Like with the whole gay marriage issue, or really we should call it same-sex marriage. It's not gay marriage, but
what do you mean?
is it an equivalent?
I don't know. They're definitely not equivalent in the hard definition of equivalent, but I'm not sure what you mean by equivalent because I don't want to be crass.
Yeah,
But
I appreciate that. Yeah,
in the
I try
description,
very carefully.
But orifice is an orifice, as I've heard some people say. So in that way, I guess you could call it equivalent, but I'm not sure what you're getting at.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're getting at being unnatural.
Not according to the design of the body. Even if you're an atheist, I think you should be against homosexual behavior as some sort of societal norm. Yeah.
Because it's not
Well, it's an evolutionary dead end.
It's an evolutionary dead end.
Okay, so let me go into the evolution atheistic worldview. What's the closest thing I could call good is something that propagates the species, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if I become homosexual and all my behaviors and actions are homosexual now, I've just ended my evolutionary line because I'm never going to have kids like that.
So what's the argument against that argument?
I don't know an argument against that. I mean, that's a fact, right? That's an evolutionary dead end. A homosexual is an evolutionary dead end.
No, it's not a fact.
They can't have kids, Doug.
Yes, but remember, evolution is via natural selection is to help propagate the species, correct?
Yeah, but every gay person is an evolutionary dead end unless they don't behave in homosexual ways.
Can you
so
think,
that in as much as they hold to homosexuality, they're an evolutionary stopping point. So there is no propagating of those genes.
Not for them personally, but maybe.
Okay, and then if you translate that to all of society, you've got society's gone.
Yes, I agree with that statement, but that's not not natural.
Celibacy, for instance, if propagated to all of society as if it was a good thing, that's actually really bad.
Right, but that's not what we see.
A few people could be celibate, but man, if everybody does this, it's really bad news.
But Mike, we're talking about evolution and what we're seeing in nature, what's natural and what's not. What seems to be the fact in nature is that homosexuality is a very, very small percentage. Are we agreed?
It's a small but growing percentage because what's happening in our culture right now is to the pain of gay people and to pain of the rest of the culture is we're promoting it and romanticizing it, and we're calling it brave, and we're calling it courageous, and we're encouraging it. That's the current milieu that we live in. We encourage this stuff. It hurts people.
Okay, we can talk about whether it's going to grow to the point where it takes over the population, but
I don't think it's going to take over. I think it's going to grow. That's all.
But currently, it's very small. I think 3% of men and 4% of women, or something like that.
Well, so what happens right now is it's not that we have more people who are lifelong homosexuals. What we have is more and more youth who experiment with abnormal sexualities. That's the culture we live in. And then within usually a year or two, they're back to being straight.
But what I want to get back to is, like, you made the comment that homosexuality is an evolutionary dead end.
Yeah.
And you stated that as fact.
Yes.
But I don't know, we don't even know what causes heterosexuality, let alone homosexuality.
Yeah. I think that it's safe to say we're designed for it.
Well, you're as a believer, you believe that you're designed for it. But
you can't even do biology without using the word design. What do you say instead?
Select. But the point is that there might be factors that you can have a small percentage of a population, not just humans, but other animals, where if the small percentage is homosexual, that it might be beneficial to the society. And I don't think it takes much of an imagination to figure out concrete examples of that. One example I've heard is there's even tribes in Africa today where the men go out hunting, and not all the men, some of the men, and the men that stay back with the women and children are the homosexual men.
Yeah.
And so but the men who go out, they feel confident that nothing is going to happen to their women. And the men help out with the women with certain things. There's another theory out there that I have a friend. This is a true story.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny, so maybe it'll lighten things up a bit. But he'll go to bars and he'll pretend he's gay, or slightly gay.
Get free drinks?
No. You know why he does that?
Yeah.
It turns women on.
Oh yeah, because you can't have me. So yeah.
And
wow.
But then by the end of the night, he's he's actually picked them up.
Yeah. What a great guy.
But but there's, as bad as that example sounds, but that's not true homosexuality, of course. But
yeah, let's consider what you're saying this example for. That doesn't even relate.
But this is why I asked you about the definition of homosexuality, that it's not always clear cut, because I think
the only example that you gave that seems to connect, if I heard you right, let me give it back to you, is the idea that homosexuality could be beneficial in some cultures because it helps in certain scenarios, certain days, certain cultures, certain women stay faithful to their husbands.
Yes. Another example would be, let's say...
it seems to me that this is, we're really reaching.
There's another... Yeah, I'm sure it does seem that way to you. But there's another theory out there that if most scientists believe that it's a mixture of genetic and environment. And
are you sure about that?
No, I'm not.
Because I don't.
But let me
could be wrong. But I'm fairly certain that that's not true.
I'm totally willing to strike that from the record and say some scientists say that it's a mixture of genetic and environment. That I'm sure you'll agree with. And one theory they have is that the genetic component, let's say on a gene, that might exhibit a trait of homosexuality, might have another trait that is beneficial to the society for reproduction, not directly necessarily to that individual, but for the society in large. And so
it's, in other words, I think what you're saying is it's possible, conceivably at least, that homosexuality has some evolutionary benefit that results in propagating of the species, even though it's not the genes of the homosexual individual.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't think, in other words, to put it
Yeah.
even more bluntly, I don't think we can say it's a fact that
Yeah.
it's an evolutionary dead end. I think that's
Well,
intellectually dishonest.
it's a fact that a consistent homosexual doesn't pass on their genes. Is that not a fact?
No, that's not even a fact.
So, but if you're consistently homosexual, you don't have kids.
Well, I guess it depends what you mean by consistently homosexual. A homosexual can have that natural desire for the same sex, but still choose to procreate with in a certain situation.
They can, but they're fighting against the thing that I would consider that a good thing. I'm like, okay, so you're going against the thing that I'm saying is unhealthy. But if you follow through the thing that we're talking about, homosexuality, then there's no children. And in that sense, it's a dead end evolutionarily. It's not going to produce any offspring.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah.
So that's all I mean when I say it's an evolutionary dead end. And so if you were looking under a microscope, let's suppose it was a genetic thing, and you looked under a microscope and you find a genetic thing that means this person can't have children, you would say, wow, that's not a good thing.
Say that again.
If you saw a genetic issue that someone has, let's say that means now they can't have kids. Well, that thing that's keeping them from having kids, that's a negative thing. That's not positive. And it may even have some side benefit in some random weird way, but in general, that's a bad deal. And that's homosexuality. So that's from the secular perspective.
Yeah. I think what you're missing is that homosexuals can still benefit society in terms of reproduction, but just not directly. Like, that's
pretty much in theory and not in actual. I mean, it's not like you have a scientific study that shows this to be some great fact. Do you know what I mean? I don't mean to come off weird, but that's just a hypothesis.
Okay, but do you agree with that hypothesis? That's at least possible?
Oh yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
It's possible, but I would suggest this, that
there might be a study out there. I don't know. Someone can find
not that I'm aware of. But I would say even if it is true, I don't think it outweighs the downsides enough for us to say that it's somehow something society should accept, embrace, encourage.
Like right now, I've heard a stat that there's 250,000 kids who have moved from foster care to same-sex couples. So there's an example of, and now these couples are vetted. In order to go from foster care to adoption, it's a big legal process and a lot of vetting's done. They can't have criminal records. They have to be stable financially and so forth. And I think that contributes to the health and well-being of these kids instead of going from place to place to place from foster care.
Yeah.
So there's a very practical example of where homosexuality, even in today's culture, can
did homosexuality cause them to become foster parents, or would the same people have potentially been foster parents, had they not been homosexual?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
I'm just saying that I don't think that the homosexuality is the thing we should give credit for them being foster parents.
There's a lot of kids out there that need help, and if homosexuals can help them, why not let them help them? Yeah. That's my point.
Yeah. No, there's been a study by a guy named Mark Regnerus on the topic of gay parents.
But do you agree with that? That if there's kids who need a home, are you against same-sex couples adopting them?
At least partially.
What does that mean?
I'm not saying in every scenario I would always say no. You know what I mean? But at least partially. And there's been recent studies. There's a study by a guy named Mark Regnerus about the health and well-being of kids who are raised by same-sex parents, homosexual parents. And the study turned out to give some pretty startling statistics about. This is just the facts of the study, and Mark Regnerus is widely hated because of this stuff. But this is the facts of the study.
Was that the one out of Texas?
I got some details for it. I don't remember where he did it.
I think I've seen that one, and if memory serves, that one was the publication that put it out there admitted that they shouldn't have because the study was flawed. But I am just speaking off the top of my head.
I don't think so. I was pretty careful in trying to vet these things before I even included them in my own presentation. But
But
let's see.
you don't. I
It
don't want. I
was
don't want to make this like a research boring type thing. But
yeah.
I want to keep it big picture as much as possible. But I want to just confirm one thing. If you have, let's say, two men who are stable financially, make good money.
Yeah.
They've never committed serious crimes, maybe parking tickets, but they're no criminal record, stable, been together a long time. They want to adopt a foster child. Are you okay with that or not?
I definitely have problems with it. I honestly, I'm not sure if that should ever be allowed under any circumstances or never be allowed under any. I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been confronted with this issue. I'm not involved in making legislation for fostering and adopting. But I do know that this one study demonstrated these unhealthy things happening to the kids, and they rated a lot lower on a lot of different measures in particular. And there's recently kids who were raised by same-sex couples who are coming out saying, this is just recently, because it's only been so long that this has been happening, saying, it's not that I don't love my parents. I love the ones who raised me, but I didn't have a dad. And that really bothers me. And it bothers me that it was okay with everyone that I had no dad or I had no mom, and I loved my dads, but I had no mom. And that really bothers me. That was an important part of my life. I mean, can you imagine your kids without a dad?
No,
Like moms and dads do different things. And
yeah.
And it's important to recognize this is not the equivalent. Like two guys that want to adopt is not the equivalent of a husband and wife who wants to adopt.
Yeah, I can see
because
your
the
point
men
there.
and women perform different roles for the children.
And I think I'm not a homosexual, but I think a lot of homosexuals they make very conscientious choices to make sure that there's women in their lives, aunts or uncles or cousins or whatever that fill that role. But here's something that I just realized I had this on my hard drive. There is no evidence that homosexual parents produce children of lower health or well-being. Every major health and welfare organization in the United States has commented on this issue and has said the same thing. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the Child Welfare League of America, the American Psychological Association, and the National Association of Social Workers have all said that homosexual parents produce children of good health and well-being. No significant difference between heterosexual and homosexual. Basically, when you're comparing apples to apples, oranges to oranges.
And what are we comparing here? We're comparing which kind of couples to which kind of couples?
Heterosexual couples to homosexual couples.
Yeah. Well, that's not the statistics I've got. So we're just sort of quoting studies that each other.
Right. And that becomes like my research is better than your research type of deal. But I've named 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 national organizations. I think 5.
Yes, you have named 5. I haven't looked to count heads, so I don't have a response to that. I'd be happy to go research those organizations, look at what they said, look at what studies they did, look at the responses to those studies, and do all that kind of work. But I haven't done it. I don't have it off the top of my head.
But if that was true, let's say the studies were actually speaking truth, that kids,
then it would make me more supportive of it. Yeah, if that was true.
Excellent.
I don't suspect that that's the whole story, and I have a good reason for that. Man, there are certain people that are part of the pro-gay agenda that are so hateful and vitriolic against anybody who produces any study that goes against their agenda. And it is vicious, the stuff that they say and do. And so I think that...
But do you think they represent the majority of homosexuals?
No, not at all. No. But I do think they have a lot of power, though.
You know who I think is the most influential person when it comes to homosexuality is Ellen.
Ellen DeGeneres?
Yeah. And everybody loves Ellen. I'm sure you love Ellen.
Well, there's pro-gay lobby groups that will call up, like, say, Disney or these different studios, and they'll say, we want you to put a positive gay character in every one of your shows. And so then the writers will respond to this because they don't want to get put on this blacklist. And it's not a conspiracy. No, this is called lobbying. This is just lobbying. This is what they do. And so, and it's, in fact, you commented on one of my videos. I talked about some of this stuff where this has been an agenda that's been laid out in a book called After the Ball. How we would change America on the topic of homosexuality. So
do you actually believe that if the people that you're talking about, the very vocal ones, and I share the same sentiment with you. I don't like people forcing things down my throat. I don't like if but if they want to talk, I'll let them talk. Like free speech, I'm all for free speech.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking they represent a very small percent of the population of the group that they're representing. I think most homosexuals, I could be wrong about this, when it comes to their personal life, their love life, they just want to be left alone.
Yeah. Well, and I should say we should separate the gay agenda and the people pushing it from gay people. These are not
Good,
the same thing.
good.
I think the gay agenda and the people pushing it are hurting and are against gay people. And that I'm for them, even though some might not realize that. Because I want to lovingly, graciously educate and empower them to come out of that and to live a life according to their actual nature and their actual design.
Yeah, and like, I agreed with the first half of your sentence, but not the last half, because there's a lot of like, what does natural mean?
Well, and that's a hardship with your worldview. That I mean, like as an atheist,
Like what we're doing right now.
even if something's against your physical design, even if you're not going to have it in a capital D, your physical design, even if it's against that, how do you say that you shouldn't do it? Like, how do you really offer any ought to the way things are?
I'm not even going that far yet, but I'm just focusing on the word natural, because what we're doing right now, we're having a social interaction on a screen. That's not natural. What we're doing is not natural, but that doesn't make it wrong.
Yeah, but it's not against nature. There's sexual behaviors that are against the design, and the proof is in the sickness and illness and pain that it causes. So like cutting off my own arm with a hacksaw, that's not only unnatural, but it's against my nature. This is against, like, you're not made for your arm to be cut off. Like, this isn't supposed to happen, kind of thing. So,
well, is cancer natural or unnatural?
In the sense of, for the design of the human body, cancer is an unnatural thing. Yeah. In the sense on which I'm using the word. Yeah.
Okay. Then I don't really get.
Yeah.
Because people do. It's not a lot of people. It's
maybe I could say the word healthy instead of natural.
Yeah, maybe that would be better.
And so it's unhealthy. It's against the health of the person and the society.
Yeah, and so is eating too much cheesecake.
Yeah, which we also shouldn't do. Now imagine if we had programs on TV glorifying eating and glutting yourself and getting as fat as possible. And if people got diabetes, we called them heroes. Like, you'd be going, oh man, this is like not healthy for us to be doing. This is wrong. And then when you said it's wrong, they come against you as like a diabetophobic, and they start calling you names. And they don't realize that you're caring for the very people they think you're hating.
Getting back to the adoption issue, I'm coming from the point of view of compassion and the well-being of societies. If I see kids who need a home, now I'm going to give an extreme example here, so forgive me, but if I see a man and a woman who have both been to jail, they're convicted felons, they've done their time, they're out now, they basically don't have jobs, they're unemployed, and they want to take in a foster child to adopt, well, they probably would never get through the vetting process. And I compare that to a stable homosexual couple who are financially secure and have been law-abiding citizens. To me, it's a no-brainer. Put the kids, if it's choice between those two extreme examples, actually only one's extreme, but if it's those two choices, it's a no-brainer. I hope it's a no-brainer for you.
Yeah. I think that there are kids who have been adopted. I'll put it this way, and this is even maybe more extreme, who have been adopted by a same-sex couple whose lives were radically improved because of this. So, right. I mean, I absolutely believe that, and I wouldn't doubt it, and I wouldn't bash it, nor would I think I have to discount the parenting of this person because they have a sexual sin in their life. They might be a really good parent in every other way. And so this is the thing. I'm not really taking position on adoption. It wasn't really my desire to come and debate homosexual couples adopting children. But I do want to say this. We don't want to see a normalization and encouraging of unhealthy behavior in our culture. Even if you're an atheist, you should agree with that. Well, if you care about the people. I mean, some people could just say, I don't care.
No, I would agree. I do not want to encourage unhealthy behavior, and
Yeah.
um,
And I think we can prove
but that
that
includes,
homosexual.
yeah. But to limit it to, and I'm sure you're not doing this, but to limit it to homosexual behavior is, there's so many
Yeah.
behaviors that are harmful. But
Yeah. And I'm against them all. Yeah. Yeah.
do you know this person? She
Hold on,
was at the Olympics, and she's an 800-meter runner.
okay.
And when I say the
Is
word,
it,
oh, my mouse is bothering me. But anyhow, what does your worldview do with situations like this? She basically, I think she won gold, and she was born with, I think the testes were in, but she had no penis, and I'm not sure if she's XY or XXY or something like that, but basically she's not male or she wasn't born male or female.
okay.
She's called intersex. Now,
So the question is, I'm
now,
sorry, go ahead. I'll let you ask.
but she's ran in the female Olympics. If she has sex with a female, is she a homosexual or is she a heterosexual? Like, how do you deal? And this is not trivial. Like, there's 1.6%, I think, of the world population are intersex.
No, okay, I could be wrong on this. So bear with me, because I've only begun doing some research into the issues of chromosomes and the complicated area of that minority. I've only begun looking into that, and there's a lot I don't know. But I'll start by saying I really do care about what it would be like to be born this way and then go, well, what are you saying about me, Mike? Well, so far I haven't talked about you at all, is what I would say. I'm talking about people who are clearly male, clearly female, and then them doing sexual things that are inappropriate.
So do you admit then that there are some people who are not clearly male and clearly female?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I don't really know.
How do you square that with your scriptures that say they were born male and female?
Yeah. Well, Jesus did refer to this, well, possibly refer to this. He says that some are born eunuchs. He says some are born eunuchs, some are made eunuchs, some make themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of God. And the question is, when he said born eunuchs, this kind of a vague thought. What is he talking about? Well, he might have been talking about people that were born with dysfunctional sexual organs. Or with some sort of version of this. But even if it's 1.6%, my little bit of research has said that that's sort of a blown up number. We're not really looking at 1.6%. It's like 1.6% of people have abnormal chromosomes, but not 1.6 have like real world, like big picture, genotype, phenotype type issues. Does that make sense? But let's say that it was 1.6%. I don't think that this issue of what we do with, or how we think about a person who is born with like this Olympic runner, I don't think that how we deal with them changes our views of homosexuality, because I think they're unrelated issues.
Okay, here's why I disagree with you on that point, because
Yeah.
These people that we're talking about right now, no matter what percentage they make of the world population, they are out there, they are real people, and these are real scientific facts that they have a mixture of male and female genitals.
I don't dispute any of that.
Okay, so
I
now would you call that natural?
No. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. For instance, let's say that somebody's born with Down syndrome. Is Down syndrome natural in the sense,
Okay,
like,
so
this is the right way to be? It's a tragedy, but I wouldn't look at it and say, this is exactly how we function at our healthiest.
okay,
This is
let
like
me put it a
appropriate.
different way. Let me put it a different
Yeah.
way. Let's say if a person like, I think her name is Castor, if Castor could be born that way, and that influences her proclivity, her natural desires for a certain sex, why couldn't that be the case with the other 3% of the world population who call themselves homosexual? That there's something genetic in them.
Yeah.
That
Well, we've looked for it, but all the evidence seems. Now, well, let me put it this way. Let's say hypothetically that homosexual people are born that way.
Okay.
They're born perfectly male physically in appearance, but there's something genetically in them that says you will desire only other men, or the same vice versa for a female. Let's suppose they're born that way. In my perspective, it's a sin that is to be put off.
Got it.
And this applies in the same sense to sins. I think I was born perhaps with lustful like tendencies, and they've been fed in my life, and I wish I could just wish them away or go to therapy and have them just disappear. Perhaps I was born this way. It doesn't change my calling though. It's just sad. It's just like, that's a bummer. That's a battle I got to fight. But in that sense, born that way doesn't mean should live this way. But now the evidence though, the science seems to indicate not born that way. And there's a lot of good information out there nowadays. A lot of it provided by people trying to prove they are born that way, ending up proving we can't find anything to say they're born that way. One of the most interesting things is twin studies. You have identical twins, who were one's gay, one's not. You only see about a 10% group of identical twins where both of the twins are gay.
So do you think so you're saying that science points
if they were genetically born that way, both twins would be gay either all or almost all the time.
Well, not necessarily. I know what you're saying. I think it's 20% of the time, and
it's one out of 9. I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
but
11%.
I guess because science. You mentioned science so far doesn't know or hasn't said definitively one way or another, and I agree with you. But one thing that I know is that when I see a gorgeous woman walking by, there is a auto response. And I'm not sure if you felt this ever before, but I hope.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, we're not even talking about a split second of thinking going on. It's like heart rate elevated.
Yeah, but when you were like 3 years old, you weren't doing this.
No, it's after puberty, of course.
Yeah. The whole idea of born that way is, first off, I think it's irrelevant as to the morality of the issue. It only speaks to the difficulty of the issue, right?
Okay.
If you're born that way, it's more difficult, but it doesn't change the morality. But the other thing is that the scientific studies don't say born that way. That's a total like cultural, like, it's like, dude, it's like the Loch Ness monster of the liberals is thinking that people are born that way. They're not. And the evidence says no.
No scientific evidence says that it's genetic?
There's no compelling scientific, and now get this, I'm not bothered if there is.
Okay, so then why bring it up?
I'm okay with seeing scientific evidence that says people are born that way. It's not there.
Okay.
And if it is, I'm okay, show it to me. But I've done plenty of research trying to find it, looking at the most well-known studies, the most, because this stuff gets all over the news if they say we found a gay gene.
See, what I'm hearing you say then is, let's say 10 years from now, you become convinced that it is purely genetic, that all the science agrees.
Yeah.
It still doesn't change the fact that it's wrong.
Yeah, it changes how we handle the issue. Is like, how are we going to treat this problem? Because this person's going to be born with this. Boy, that just makes it, I don't know, it just makes it harder.
Wait a minute, now this is getting interesting. It doesn't change the morality of it, but it changes how we handle it if they're born that way?
Yeah.
How so?
Okay, so if you're born that way, you're hardwired for that. It changes expectations of what treatment can accomplish, like counseling or life behavioral changes.
So you're saying you would stop pray the gay away type stuff?
Okay, let me pause for a second.
No,
when you were a Christian, I want to know, Doug, when you were a believer, when you say I was a believer, right? When you were a believer,
yeah,
did you say pray the gay away?
When I was a believer,
did you think that was the Christian view?
I didn't even know gays back then.
Come on, it had to. Would you, the Christian version of Doug, would you have said pray the gay away?
I don't remember, and I don't think so.
Yeah, but you just characterized this as pray the. I've never even heard anybody in my life of following Christ
strike
say pray
that
the
from
gay
the
away.
record. Strike it from the record. I will rephrase as.
It's just an ad hominem, is what it is.
I will rephrase as, if what I'm hearing you say is that if you became convinced one day, through science or whatever, that yes, it is 99% genetic, we'll leave 1% wiggle room, that you would change on how you handle the issue in terms of maybe, what I meant by pray the gay away, that you would no longer have these maybe conferences or study groups where Christians get together and pray for this person that the homosexuality would go away. Is that what you're saying? Because it is a genetic component?
The more genetic it is, the less hope there is for substantial change in the way a person feels. Does that make sense? That'd be my perspective. I'd be like, the more genetic this is, the less hope there is that we're going to substantially be able to change how you feel about these things. But never in the Christian worldview is it the ultimate goal to not be tempted anymore. Like with the issue of lust, I don't know how many guys I've talked to that are like, why doesn't God just take this away? Yet Scripture never says that. It says that you may be, 1 Corinthians 10:13, it says that no temptation is overtaking you except what's common to man, but God's faithful. He will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you're able, but with the temptation, he'll provide a way of escape that you may be able to endure it. There's an enduring nature of taking up your cross daily, dying to self.
I'm
So,
still,
so
I'm still.
I don't take the one issue of homosexuality and make it different than every other sin a Christian is tempted with. I make it the same as all the other ones. You got to fight it. You got to die to self.
I got
Nothing's
a
gonna
couple
change
of problems with what you're saying. Number one, that if we're talking about, if I enter your worldview and we're talking about God here, he can do miracles. So even if it's 99% genetic, maybe you should still have these groups where you can pray, lay hands on people and try to change the genetics. I don't know.
Oh, you can pray for those things, but if you make that the Christian norm or you know what I mean, like this is what Christians are going for. They want to fix your brain by praying for you, and it's like that's not Christianity. That's not the biblical view.
And another problem I have with it is it makes it seem like people who are attracted to the same sex, that it's, and in some cases it probably is fluffy, but in a lot of cases I think it is like just as solid and powerful as what I was describing when I see a gorgeous woman walk by.
Yeah,
That
I think it probably is for a lot of people. In fact, I know it is. Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's I
I
wouldn't
mean,
then.
it's sexual. There's sexual urges, and anytime a sexual urge is directed, the strong sexual urge is directed outside of that covenant of marriage, it's an unhealthy, hurtful thing, including homosexuality. Because in Christianity, it's not like here we are going, we got one thing we hate, homosexuality. Rather, it's like there's marriage, there's a holiness, there's a godliness, there's a wonder in it. Outside of that, beyond the bounds of that, those things are sin, including promiscuity, including sleeping with your girlfriend. These things are sin. And we're in a culture right now where I'm marginalized for saying these things, but that's the truth. Yeah.
Do you? I just, by the way, I asked Violet to come in, but do you think that there's any other, like you mentioned, the health? That's a one bad reason to be or to have homosexuality in a society.
Yeah.
Is there any other things? Like, are you one of those Christians who say that actually God will lift a veil of protection and could cause harm to a country because of homosexuality?
Oh, okay. So the example biblically would be Sodom and Gomorrah, but Sodom and Gomorrah were judged for a litany of sins, and we don't look at homosexuality as being the one reason why judgment fell upon them. So if that's what you're asking.
Okay, so I've heard some Christians say that. I'm just wondering if you
I'm kind of in an odd position because I'll say all sin is not the same. All sin is not the same, but all sin is terribly bad.
like you said that a secular reason to be against homosexuality is the health issue for the person, but is there any bad thing that could happen to you personally from homosexuality?
What do you mean?
Like you basically said that maybe not divine judgment, but is there anything else? Like there's some people think that hurricanes are caused by homosexuals, but is there anything like that puts you and your family at risk because homosexuality is being perpetuated in society?
I'm not in general.
Okay.
I mean, there's a general like badness to it. There's the whole idea of society moving downhill morally in any way will affect those who live in that society. So in general, there's things, but I don't. If you're trying to get me to say that there's like a spooky ooky, lightning bolt.
By the way,
coming.
I just shook my head, but it wasn't because of you. I'm trying to get my mouse to work. It just died on me. Violet, I'm trying to get you in here.
Yeah.
And that's
You're good.
Yeah.
Hey, Violet.
Everybody can
Hey,
hear you.
how are you?
Mike can see Violet, but people in the YouTube stream can't
Yeah.
see her yet. I'm working on it, but
Mike can see people who are invisible right now.
Good to see you.
so I'm going to use labels.
ghost.
I'm going to use labels here, Mike. Mike.
Okay.
No, Violet. This is Pastor Mike. Pastor Mike.
Hi, Pastor Mike.
And Mike.
I like the way you say it.
And Mike, this is
I feel like I'm at an AA meeting.
This is transsexual Violet.
Oh,
Hi,
hi.
Violet.
How's that for
It's
labels?
nice to meet you. I'm glad you're
Nice to meet
joining
you.
us.
And I'm
Thank
heterosexual
you.
Doug.
Hey, Doug, could I ask you a question while you're working on getting Violet into the view here?
Sure.
I want to ask you a few questions. Am I a bigot, in your opinion? I'm not going to argue with you. I just want to know your opinion.
I don't think so, no.
Okay. Am I homophobic?
These words mean so many different things, so it's hard to answer it.
Well, it's your opinion, so you don't even have to qualify it. This is like this. You like simple, quick answers from other people.
I'm going to answer quickly, and then I'll explain why.
Sure.
No, I don't think you're a bigot. No, I don't think you're homophobic in this sense. Number one, you're sitting in a room here with transsexual Violet, and you agreed to it beforehand. I want everybody to know on the live stream, this is not a surprise to Mike, right, Mike?
Yeah, no ambush here. You told me.
This is not an ambush.
Yeah, I was looking forward to it.
And so in that way, you are not homophobic. I truly believe you have the best intentions in mind. Your motives are pure.
So do you think that when I say that that my motives are honestly for as much for the, if not more, for the homosexuals in the population, as well as we might talk about transgenderism, that my motives are to help them and bless them? Do you believe that I'm being genuine?
Yes, I do. I have no, and I've never even for a moment thought that your motives aren't pure, that you truly love people and want to help them. I've talked to you for 5 or 6 hours and then chatted with you on text many times. Unless my first impressions of you is totally way off.
Well, I'm the same person everywhere, man. On the pulpit or walking down the street, I'm just me.
No, I just disagree with your reasoning. And your reasoning is basically because the Bible says so.
But that's not
the main
true.
reason.
Although,
I agree.
although that is part of my reasoning. It's a very
the main
important
reason.
part.
It's the main reason, because when I asked you about the genetic component, you would still say it's a sin, and so in the ought you get from the Bible. But anyhow, so I met Violet through a Facebook group about 3 or 4 months ago. Violet, is that true?
Yeah, something like that. And I'd like to say, Mike, by the way, that just like you, I am completely in the dark because this is Doug's show, and he just said, "Would you come and join?" So
Okay.
I don't know what's going on either.
Have you got a chance to look at any of my videos or anything like that? I'm just curious, so I can know where you're. Okay, I checked out some of yours because Doug said you were going to be, and he connected me to your thing, and I looked at your channel, and I saw one of your Minecraft videos too.
Really? I mean, I haven't done that stuff in forever. It's so old.
I know, but I like Minecraft. Though. That was great.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So I think I've watched part of your last video. I actually like. This is going to sound weird, but I like just asking people what they think, what they believe on stream, rather than doing all this research on this, and that kind of prevents me from doing. I know I've been accused of doing gotcha questions before, but at least in this case, I can't do gotcha. Well, back there you said I can't do that with you now because I haven't watched your videos. Yeah.
You should, Doug. You should check out my series on homosexuality. I think just part 3 and 4. That's what you'll be interested in. Yeah.
But the reason why I brought Violet on, number one, is I wanted to basically, and I hope you agree with me, Mike, bring people together. Number one.
Yeah.
That
I like that.
From different worldviews, and we've talked about heterosexuality a little bit, homosexuality a lot, but Violet is a weird case because she was born male but now is female. Mm-hmm. And so now when we're talking about sin in your worldview, and we already talked about the intersex thing, where would you even begin to counsel her if she came to your church?
Yeah.
And it's a real issue.
Well, counseling, okay, in the general sense, counseling always begins with where a person's at. But I know something of a Violet's at. I tried to find out about you before we got a chance to talk, So I know that you're an atheist, and you wouldn't be interested in counseling, like, help me follow God, Mike. Like, that's certainly not your perspective, and I wouldn't pretend that you are coming from that, right? Yeah, exactly. So honestly, if I had a chance to counsel Violet, this is the worst possible way to counsel somebody. Live stream with 3 people in the room being brought on in sort of like a blind date type environment, you know? And so I would not probably try to engage in a whole lot of counseling. But let me say this much to you.
Yeah,
Violet,
I don't want to put you on the spot though.
Well, you like to do street epistemology, right?
I do.
Yeah. Now, Doug introduced me to street
That's sort
epistemology.
of how we know each other, is through this street epistemology.
Yeah, well, Doug, okay, through watching Doug's videos, I found out about street epistemology and then looked up Anthony Magnabosco and actually got the book, A Manual for Creating Atheists, in my preparations for talk, because I'm a researcher, as I like to do, right? So,
fun fact, Mike, I've never read the book.
Yeah, well, if you could just, yeah, you could get the gist of it from watching Anthony's videos, right?
Yeah.
So what I would do is I would ask you this, and I would ask you it. I hopefully you hear this in a gracious sense, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty open.
Good. Have you ever tried using street epistemology on your deeply held beliefs about you being a girl?
Yes.
Yeah. And what would you say came of that?
I just did some more research. I don't know exactly what to say, except I've talked to people, and actually street epistemology people who just turn it on me, and it's kind of a fun thing we all do with each other sometimes.
Haven't you and I, Violet, done like SC on this topic together?
I think we have, and Anthony, not Anthony Magnabosco, but different one, does it a lot. Yeah, we've all kind of.
So do I have permission to ask you a few questions along those lines? Not
sure. I guess. I guess that's why I'm here. So
maybe not meaning just to got you, but there's an audience as well, and this hopefully will benefit others as well. And in one way or the other, either there's good answers or there's not. So it could be, maybe it proves me wrong. But let me ask you. Okay, so do you believe that that a person can, who's in your position, you're born would you say you were born physically male? Would that be appropriate?
Sure.
Okay. And then do you think that the process you're going through right now has actually made you physically female?
It depends on how you define things. How do you define being female? I mean, if it's only, you're only a female when you have the genes, and by that really rigid definition, I suppose I wouldn't be female ever.
Okay. And then what about how do you define it?
Really just kind of depends on the situation. And I don't mean to be all wishy-washy, but really I tend to kind of like in situations where you're with, you're doing a counseling with a person and you kind of have to get on their level a little bit. If, with my doctor, I would, tell them, my history, because it's important. Yeah, I had to worry about things slightly differently than, just cis female sort of healthcare and vice versa and stuff when it comes in the trans community. With most people, I'm socially just female, and I move on with my life. So it really kind of depends. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
So would you, if I asked you, are you a girl? Would you say yes?
Sure. Yeah.
In all honesty, that's how you feel? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty reasonable for me to say, I think.
Yeah. So do you think then, would you say from a philosophical perspective, would you say that sex change, and I know it's a long process, it's a year's process with hormones and various surgeries and different and other stuff as well that most people probably aren't aware of, that you would know intimately and understand better than me, So would you say that process works, that it really does change the sex of the person?
It depends on what the surgery is, but if we're talking about, sort of SRS or GRS or GCS, essentially in layman's terms, at least I'm speaking for a male to female because that's my own personal experience. Yeah. Having the bottom surgery, that's enough for me to say someone is a female.
Okay, so you'd say that it works. Like male to female would be a realistic description. You really are going male to female. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah. No, I'm not offended. It's really hard to offend me.
Yeah, well, good.
Generally.
Well, I mean, if you do street epistemology stuff, you're probably, hopefully, you got some thick skin. And I actually enjoy getting to talk to people who I disagree with, and that's a rare quality.
Well, I vehemently disagree with you, and if I had a book, I'd slam it. So
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Well, good. That should be good. So let me ask you a couple of questions, if I can, along with those lines, to see if that's a consistent worldview.
Does a worldview has to be consistent for it to be true?
I think so. Yeah.
I tend to lean that way too. I've thought about this lately, and not to change the subject,
Yeah.
but it's like there's a thing someone said about like people who have a problem with like the problem of evil and stuff, and I'm just saying this, to kind of help you understand what I'm thinking a
Yeah.
little bit. And I think it was Cy 10 that once said like after an answer to like the problem of evil is like evil happens for reasons that are perfectly sufficient to God. And I don't think that quite solves it, but it could be true. That God allows things, and so some people see something as a contradiction, some people don't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
See, I would think that answers, if true, that answer is sufficient intellectually, but it doesn't deal with the emotional problem of evil.
I agree. I
that
agree.
we struggle with.
Yeah. So but that's just kind of
yeah.
like what I
Yeah.
maybe gives you some hint at what I think.
So, okay, now let me give you some hypotheticals. I'm going to be Doug.
I don't know. Doug always has visitors that never want to think hypothetically, and I think I just have to keep with that,
Oh, is that
schema,
right?
a
Well, that's all I
bit
do with
stretch.
Doug is we just talk in hypotheticals. It seems.
Go on. What's your hypothetical?
Okay, so if a person was forced to have a sex change against their will, they're given hormone treatments and they're forced. Now, we would both agree this is a bad thing. This is tragic, for that to happen. But they're forced to take hormone treatments and do all the stuff, all of it, every little thing, like learning voice things and all that stuff. The question is, at the end of that process, did the sex change work? Like, let's say it was male to female. So, like, let's say I was forced under gunpoint for months and months and months and years. Did it work?
I think I get what you mean. Like if we forced Doug here, he did cross-dress once, I remember.
Yeah, but I didn't see that on screen. But yeah.
Yeah, if we forced
Cross-dressing is not a sin, though.
If we forced Doug to take hormones and we, had some fun with him surgically, is he now a woman? I don't think he is.
You don't think he is?
I don't think he is. Part of what I kind of see men and women as, like, I'm fairly open to people just saying I'm a woman and I just kind of accept it. Doesn't really need to be like a, so rigid of a thing for me.
Okay,
I have like, I can say like, like medically, you can acknowledge, medically, whenever we're thinking about the genes or something, or we're thinking about whatever it is, socially, your sex might be different, or, psychologically, maybe your sex might be different.
So you would say then a person who went through the same process you're going through, but to its completion, that if they didn't want it to work, it didn't work. But if they wanted it to work, it did work.
Maybe in a sense, if someone doesn't identify as female, I don't think any amount of my cosmetic surgical scalpel could change that.
So, and then now let's say there's another hypothetical, just going to round out that thing. So if a person went through the sex change process, but then later they had sex change regret, which does happen sometimes, and they said, you know what, I don't want it. I don't want it anymore. I don't want it anymore. Like, but they can't undo all the surgeries. Maybe they have no money, or for whatever reason, they can't physically go through surgery anymore because they have an illness. And so they're stuck with all the physical enhancements, except for maybe hair, that they got through the surgeries. Are they still female, or can they now just walk around looking like a female, at least to some? Can they say, no, I'm a male now? And would you grant that they're a male at that point?
Yeah, honestly, I do. If someone just identifies as one way or the other, I kind of look
Yeah.
past their biological body and I just recognize them for
Yeah.
who they tell me they are.
Mm-hmm. And then, so why do you think that the body matters so much for you personally, if sex is only something that can go based upon your opinion?
In my experience, I have no way of fighting my body. It's just partly who I am, and
Mm.
in my earlier days of living as a male, I just felt like an immense dysphoria about who I was.
Yeah.
And I think that was the driving force to cause me to be who I am now. I've, even now to some extent, I think about it, and it'd be nice to be quote unquote normal and just not have to worry about, uh, being who I am, being able to just sort of function normally as everyone else and not have to go through some extra process just to sort of continue on. But
Yeah.
it seems that's my lot, so that's what I do, and I try to move on and
Mhm.
live with it.
So it seems to me that your perspective is that I think that your worldview is confused. I think that your worldview is inconsistent here, and
Sure.
I think, and I share this because I think it does you harm, and I think those
I'm sure you do.
yeah, and I think that those who encourage you in it aren't helping as much as they're, it's nice to have encouragement. We all like encouragement, but I think it wouldn't be helping. But neither would I be anything other than trying to honestly help.
I don't expect you to lie to me.
Yeah, well, I won't do that.
You might tell me what you believe to be true, but I don't expect you to lie to me.
So does the physical stuff actually matter then?
Hang on, before you answer that, Violet, Mike, you said that you think that she's doing harm to herself. Is that what
Yeah.
you said? But do you believe that she's sinning?
Yeah, I'm sure. I think sin is mixed up in the thing. I don't think everything you're doing is utterly sinful.
I mean,
I don't think
the sin that we're talking about, the homosexual sin or the sexual sin, or
Um,
the list you gave earlier when we
yeah.
started this.
I think Violet and me would probably agree on this. That homosexuality is completely different than transgenderism.
Probably, yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
I tend to view orientation and identity differently.
Yeah,
I
they're
mean,
very different. They're very different issues, even though
your
they relate.
orientation might be a component of your identity, but yes, gender identity versus sexual
I mean,
orientation.
you have transgender people who aren't same-sex attracted. You have same-sex attracted people who aren't transgender. These are two different issues.
Yeah.
Okay, but if Violet were to have sex with a man, has she sinned? And if she has sex with a woman, has she sinned?
I can put it this way: in the Christian worldview, which is true,
Sorry, in marriage.
it's only in marriage.
Right, but let's say Violet was to get married to a man and have
Yeah.
sex after
Is that-
marriage.
And then versely
Yeah.
have, get married to a woman and have sex,
The
which
marriage would not be true. That's literally not what marriage is.
What? Hang on.
I'm really curious now. Go on,
Two
Rob.
men is not a marriage.
Say
sorry,
A
say it
again.
marriage
again?
is a marriage by nature is between a man and a woman. That's what marriage has been. And even in the Oberfeld decision, they acknowledge this. They said historically marriage has been between a man and a woman. Now we're changing that.
So do you view me
they
as a
just
woman or a
redefined it.
man?
But yeah, my question was going to: do you view Violet
Yeah.
as a woman or a man?
Yeah. I view you as biologically as a male who's going through a process of messing with your body
Mhm.
in ways that make me sad, for you. And I know that seems like an insult, but it's really just
No. I honestly,
care.
I understand you're speaking, you're telling me what you believe, of course, but I mean, I honestly think you're
Yeah.
telling me something that you find to be true and out of, the love of
Yeah.
your own heart.
So yeah, I don't my view is that sex change doesn't work. You can't actually change the sex. You can just try to change some of the peripherals around a person to try to cause them to appear to be a different sex, but it doesn't actually work. I mean,
Maybe since you used a hypothetical with me earlier, I just thought of something I want to ask you. So I don't keep up with this stuff because sometimes I just want to live, man. But yeah, so I'm understanding. I don't know if you've heard about this. About the gene editing thing called CRISPR.
Not familiar with it.
So something that we're kind of learning about, and it's not with trans people. That's where the hypothetical king comes in. But we can actually sort of like edit your white blood cells to be able to attack cancer cells in your body. It's amazing.
Oh, I did.
It's
I heard about that recently. I didn't know it was called CRISPR. Yeah,
okay, and that's sort of
something they're hoping for,
the
right?
yeah, that's and right now it's a lot more advanced than what we had before when it came to gene editing. Uh, and I only know this because like I worked in a hospital for quite a while, and it was just talked to a bunch of people. But so when so the hypothetical, I guess, comes in just to move back to that is if I could in the future just inject myself however many times it takes and just modify my X chromosomes and just make them both X chromosomes instead of an XY, would I then be female?
Yeah, I don't know how I would dispute that. I mean, if you could genetically change every cell in your body to literally become the
XX.
the actual definitional, this is a physical female, then you'd be physically female. I
If
wouldn't have an argument against that.
if I
I
could do that and then keep my penis, if I had one, I'm not
yeah,
admitting that, I'm just hypothetical here.
yeah.
Uh, would I still be female?
No. Well,
So I have all
you would
XX
be
chromosomes, and in this hypothetical reality, you still have a
yeah,
penis.
you would be intersex at that point, as we were talking about before with Doug. Yeah.
Ah.
I mean, literally, you'd be intersex. I could be wrong here, but you're asking me hypothetical. If
Yeah,
somebody
yeah, clearly.
had their chromosomes altered, but yet they still had physical, outward, masculine appearances, then I'd be like, well, what are you right now? You're something else.
So,
I don't know what to call it. Now,
so
I would think it
if
would
I
be
if I had a
more,
vagina and had my XX chromosomes, but everything else about my appearance read very male, like I looked bodybuilt. I'm the Arnold Schwarzenegger of females, and would I be intersex still at that point?
wait, um, wait, what?
Like
You kind of threw me with Arnold
you've seen
Schwarzenegger.
you've seen Arnold Schwarzenegger pictures from like the 80s, right?
Yeah, yeah, sadly, yeah.
Okay, so like let's just Arnold Schwarzenegger, XX
Okay.
chromosome and vagina. Is that person intersexed?
Yeah. Well, okay, what qualities is it that he has, or this person has, that's male versus female?
Everything about Arnold Schwarzenegger, just
Except
imagine him in the 80s.
mhm.
The only thing
Except he
you're
has like
changing is XX and a
female
vagina.
sexual.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
See, I think the problem here is
At that point, it seems like if he's some kind of intersex thing, you're
Why
it's not clearly
why
male
is
or
it like
female.
the muscles and all the bulgingness? I mean, why do you identify that as male while everything else reads female?
Is the XX female?
Yeah, yeah, XX is female.
Oh,
So
I
like
just get it mixed up in
XX
my brain.
female, it's okay.
Yeah, then he's a muscular female. Well, she's a muscular female at that point.
Oh, Arnold.
Yeah. I was thinking XY. I just misunderstood your question. I'm sorry for the
Okay.
confusion.
You're
Yeah.
good.
I
What were
think
you
the
gonna say,
point
Doug?
I think the point that Violet and the point I was trying to make earlier is that the whole concept of sexuality is a very complex thing. It includes genitalia and it also includes hormones and the brain chemistry and so forth.
Yeah.
And just to say, oh, this is what a man is, and this is what a woman is. I think the intersex has totally, sure, it's very, very, very rare, but it's shown, at least in an extreme way, why this is not clear cut all the time.
Okay. It seems to me that the intersex is kind of a red herring in this conversation, because logically speaking, to say that the intersex person proves something is to assume that the male female means something. You have to assume that, like, Violet, you were born biologically male. What you've done is not really change that into biologically female, although it makes you feel better because you have a perception issue of yourself saying, hey, I feel like a girl and I feel happier. And that's probably the real issue here, is that you feel happier presenting yourself as female. And so then if you can let your physical body correspond as much to that fantasy as possible, then that brings you joy. I just think that it's an unfortunate thing that it's causing harm to you at the same time. And it's going against, I think, your very design, your very nature.
What if Violet has two roads to walk?
Yeah.
And one road is for her to have stayed the way she was. And I don't even know what she's gone through in her past, like her thinking, her feelings, her emotions, everything.
Yeah.
And this road that she has taken now, you're talking about harm right now. You're talking about harming herself. Do you think that it's possible that she has chosen the road that's least harmful? That if she would have stayed where she was, it could have been more harmful? Would you acknowledge that?
Oh, well, I don't know where she was before. It's always possible that her life before was somehow more harmful, or his life. I have a hard time with pronouns because I don't want to offend you, but I feel like it's morally wrong for me to grant what I see as a harmful delusion. But I don't want to hurt your feelings, to be honest. I really don't. So what I would say is you can always find something that's worse than. I mean, take anything you want. You can always find something that's worse than. Like, maybe it's okay to beat my child because I didn't stab my child in the eye with a fork. No, that's not. It's worse than doesn't make the other thing okay. Do you understand? I think your hypothetical is based on a false premise or a false assumption.
Well, I'm just talking about real world examples, and Violet is an example of a real world example where she has choices to make in her life.
Yeah. I know that from Doug sent me the video where he interviewed you and you shared your deconversion story. And you didn't talk a whole lot about the details, so I don't know a lot, but I know this. I just know that you said you left any idea or any sense of following God in order to pursue this life.
I mean,
right?
I still kept my theism when I left. I just really thought I was going to go to hell, but I mean, I needed to continue living. And
didn't you say to me,
Violet,
you left because of how you were treated in church? That was part of the reason that you left that particular church?
I don't think I was treated poorly in that church per se. I mean,
okay.
I don't think that was. It's not like I was. You asked partly. I remember during the interview because I watched it once recently. Were you ever harmed when you went to church? And I kind of like, I didn't like answer too fast, but no, I don't. I think to answer that question, no, I don't think I was intentionally like.
But it was a church that preached this hell concept, and that's why you left then?
I didn't leave because they preached hell. I mean, I think things are true regardless of how I feel about them. If hell was true, then I don't care what makes me feel good. Just it's true. But no, like it's kind of a long and complicated.
Okay.
Because granted, and it's difficult to take a complicated life and snap it into little cliches and stuff like that. It doesn't really work well. But
yeah, no,
in general,
I think I remember saying that church wasn't conducive to my well-being. I think that's the words I used.
But here's the thing: if I'm embracing a lifestyle that alienates me from the God of the universe, that's not right, nor is it good. Now, it sounds to me like that's what you did, and I don't think it was just about transgenderism. I think it was more complicated than that. But no, that's where I would say you're harming yourself. And of course, it's kind of like there's a kid who's ditching school every day, and he's like, yeah, but ditching school every day brings me joy. I hate school. I hate going to school. I mean, this is just like an adult version of that when we live our lives in rebellion to the God of the universe, and then say, but it makes me happy. So suck it, God. I want to do what I'm going to do. And if you're real, then I don't care. That is a great tragedy. That is a great tragedy, and for you more than anybody.
Because? Why is it a great tragedy?
It alienates you from the life of God.
And why is that bad?
Why is that bad?
I know that. I know there's Christians screaming in their.
Because living with God, according to how we were designed to know and fellowship with Him for all eternity, is good.
By definition.
No, it's a good experience. It's what you're made for. It's like hammers being hammers.
Okay,
this is good, man.
You just admitted, like, there can be people who can go their whole lives who have not harmed themselves, relatively speaking, who've had fulfilling, meaningful lives, and who do not believe in the God you believe in, or may not even believe in any God. Do you agree with that?
To some extent, yeah. That's an oversimplification, but.
Okay, so now if you agree that's at least possible, then and that people have actually done that, then my question remains: why is it bad to rebel against God? If then it comes down to carrots and sticks again. Well, you won't go to heaven, and you'll go to hell.
it's not just carrots and sticks, but yeah, sure, carrots and sticks are involved. We talked about this last time about how carrots and you agree with me that carrots and sticks are not bad so long as the only thing you have aren't carrots and sticks. But yet carrots and sticks are just part of reality and part of life.
I think it's
I don't play on the freeway. Why? You'll get hit by a car. Oh man, that's just carrots and sticks, man. That's just wrong. Why would you say that? Like, it doesn't change the reality of it just because I can ridicule it.
Right. And the thing is, you're exactly right. It doesn't change the reality of it. But Violet and I would say that what you believe is not reality, because if we thought it was, we would believe it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
obviously,
and we could be wrong, and you could be
obviously,
right.
this from your perspective, Doug, if I was an atheist and I was looking at Violet, I would say, if I was you, I would say, okay, Violet has a delusion, but Violet's happy. And you know what? You die and just disappear anyways. Why not just make the best of it? But being a Christian and seeing that there's life beyond just this life, plus there's a purpose in our creation. We're not just bags of chemicals. I see that there's more to it than that. And in a sense, Violet, I elevate you much higher as far as your worth, your value, and your calling in life. And that makes a decision to have a delusion against that calling and against that worth and value that makes it tragic. That makes it a sad thing.
Like Violet and I'm sure Violet would agree with me, we believe in consequences. And I really thank you for bringing up, the health and well-being of certain aspects of the homosexual behaviors. I think that's what you should focus on when you're talking to people like me, because of course, we don't believe in your God or any gods. And so I commend you for that. And I think that's what you should focus on. But when I think the problem that you're finding in America is there's almost this feeling in Christian churches that the homosexuals are out to get us. and that if we're not careful, our own kids might turn gay.
Yeah. I think that's kind of your jaded view of things.
But do you agree with that stigma? I'm not saying you have that stigma, but do you think that is in your own church?
I honestly don't see that even in my own fellowship.
Okay,
I
great.
Don't. You know what? Honestly, here's the biggest thing I see in my own fellowship is people who say, I have loved ones. I have people I care about who are going down this road. How do I handle this? How do I love them while dealing with this one topic where our culture is making it where if I even so much as say I think it's wrong, they think I hate them. Yeah, but I love them, and that breaks my heart. That's the biggest struggle I see parents and grandparents dealing with.
I don't think either of us think you're hating on people.
I don't think you do either. I'm just, and I appreciate that. I do appreciate that.
Well,
that's the struggle I see people having is how do I just let them know I still love them? That's honestly, think about this. Church is full of people just going, how do I let them know I still love them? Even though I can't affirm that what they're doing is good because it's not. That's the struggle I see.
Would you feel comfortable? I know you don't have children, but someday when you have kids, would you feel comfortable with a lesbian taking care of your kids?
It depends on the context, but it would bother me. Yeah.
Just from the fact that she's a lesbian, it would bother you.
Well, okay. If I had an atheist taking care of my kids, I wouldn't like it either. If it was a Buddhist taking care of my kids, anybody who's in a position where they can teach my children things and they have important worldview disagreements with me, I'm not really going to want them taking care of my kids.
Okay.
Does that make sense? It's not directed in one particular direction. It's just anybody who's kind of getting that authority place in my child's life, I want them, especially when they're a kid, to be getting good information and good messages and truth.
Because you think that they might change your kid's mind?
Yeah. I want to educate my children, especially at a very young age. I want to be able to give them truth and not confusion and not conflicting
How do you separate,
messages.
Like I know you, and please don't take this the wrong way, but
yeah,
in your case, what you're talking about, you view it as imparting truth to your own child.
Yeah.
But in any other case, you would call that indoctrination, correct?
Well, I don't see a problem with indoctrination. You do indoctrination.
Okay, so I'm talking about kids, though. I
don't
talk to kids on here.
Street epistemology is guided indoctrination. That's what that is.
It's guided indoctrination. How so?
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm trying to get certain things into the heart and mind of the person. I'm using a Socratic method, but that's the goal. That's the purpose.
What am I trying to get into the minds of certain people?
You want them to doubt deeply held beliefs.
You, by the way, Doug doesn't speak for everyone. I'm not that I'm saying Doug is wrong, but
Yeah.
just
Yeah, I don't speak for everyone, but
Yes.
so you
So
believe
when Doug specifically does history, I haven't really seen a lot of yours. I watched like a little bit of one of yours. I just hadn't had time.
so you
But
I'll have to
believe
watch him.
so you believe indoctrination's fine.
yeah, no, yeah. I mean, well, okay. What does indoctrination mean? The word doctrine is teaching. In doctrine, I'm imparting teaching to you. So if you can teach your kids, but you can't indoctrinate them, you've got some sort of malicious definition of the word that you're dealing with.
Okay, yeah,
It's not the
maybe
issue
we're
itself.
thinking of two different things then, because what I think of indoctrination, and I think you're not saying this, I'm thinking of you're not giving various options or viewpoints. You're basically saying this is the only way. Don't even consider those other ones in the context
Yeah.
of kids.
So
Is that what
my
you're
perspective
saying?
on that, no, my perspective on that regard is I'd rather inoculate rather than insulate. I would rather expose people to different beliefs. I mean, I'm doing this right now, right? I'd rather expose them to varying and contradicting beliefs than to hide them from those things.
Indoctrination is the process of teaching a person or group to accept a set of beliefs uncritically.
Yeah. Okay, but that could be one definition of the word.
But that's not the
But
definition you're using.
no.
Okay.
Do you try to
What are
teach
the
your kids
look at the
how
other
to think
definitions
or
of
what
the
to
word?
think?
I'm sorry, Violet. Go ahead, please.
Do you try to teach your kids how to think or what to think?
Well, both.
Why?
Yeah. Why? Well, you
I know
you
you're
have
convinced of what you believe, but
yeah.
if your kids were taught how to think instead of what to think, if your position is true, then you should have all the confidence that your kids will believe what you believe in the end when they've thought about it.
I sure hope so, and it'll be up to them. They're going to make their own decisions. But for instance, I regularly with our youth ministry, I do our youth ministry, junior high, high school. I'll actually play video clips from people who disagree. I played them a portion of our talk, our first conversation. So our youth ministry got to hear things you said. So I'd rather. The thing is, kids don't really start to reason, like actual reason, until they're like 6, 7 years old. Before that age, there is no, teaching how to think. It's not nearly as impactful. And so before that age, I don't want other people just they're going to be indoctrinating them, right? Or I'm going to be indoctrinating them. But either way, at that age, it's all indoctrination.
So you wouldn't. So you we're on this topic because I asked you the question: would you feel comfortable having a lesbian take care of your child?
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know.
If my kid is aware of the issues and they're informed on the issues, it wouldn't be as big of a problem. If they're uninformed on the issues, I'm taking care of a pastor's kid. Here's my chance to influence them and impact them. Everybody wants to grab kids in society and have an impact in them.
But if it was,
I'm not going to act like that's not true.
But I guess my question was getting at: is there something about being a homosexual that's the reason why you wouldn't want your kids? Like the lesbian could say nothing about lesbianism.
Would I want somebody who has a pro-gay agenda taking care of my children? No.
Okay, would
I want somebody who has any kind of unbiblical agenda? I'm assuming that's coming if they're a lesbian taking care of my kid, but maybe it's not. I actually know a lesbian lady who says, I think this stuff is wrong. This is a life I live, but I know it's wrong. And if she took care of my kids, I wouldn't really be worried.
Sad.
Okay, so I don't think.
Yeah,
it's interesting. You bring a lot of thoughts to my mind. Like it sounds like if you have children, you're not even going to bring them. You wouldn't bring them to just any school. Which is good, but
well, I'll probably have to do public school without an option. I mean, there's just can't afford to do all the other stuff. But yeah,
because public schools, there's people. They might teach your kids evolution.
Yeah, but not before the age of 6. Not before they're able to start reasoning and thinking things through.
Right.
And I'm gonna talk to my kids about the issues that they face and the things that they encounter in schools. Yeah. What's weird is a lot of people are okay with the schools indoctrinating kids, but not parents. Oh no, but specifically not Christian parents. Like, what is this? This is like, chill out, man. It's nobody else's business how you raise your kids. Especially if you're non-religious, how could you be mad that somebody else is raising their kids?
I think you have a different definition than most people. Like when I hear the word indoctrinate, I think the definition I put up, and it's clear you're not talking about the same thing.
Okay, yeah. If by indoctrinate you mean teach people to be uncritical and unthinking about their views, I think that's terrible.
Yeah, and you're just using it in the
Yeah.
word to mean teach.
I guess I was thinking more in the lexical sense. So,
Can you teach a person how to think when you teach them, methodal, like give them a method for what to think, like, or tell them what to think by teaching them how to think in a certain way that doesn't lead them anywhere but a certain what to think? You know what I mean?
Well, I think, okay, this might seem strange, but if you teach people how to think and they carry that out to its logical conclusion, they will inevitably be carried to certain worldviews. So we shouldn't pretend as though if we teach people how to think and they follow us on how to think, they won't end up all at the same destination, because they will, if they're consistent. So in
So if someone taught someone
when you
how to
teach,
think differently,
yeah,
they could be led to a different religion or a different whatever.
in general, if you teach people how to think, you inevitably are also teaching them what to think, because
Yeah.
carrying
So
those thoughts out to their logical conclusion, there's worldview issues. Like if I teach you how to think critically on topics, I'm also teaching you what to think. It's kind of, we're sort of blindly patting ourselves on the back if we act like we can raise our kids and not tell them what to think.
So right now you have a certain way that you think. You have this is how you think.
Yeah.
If that has led you to your current beliefs, how do you know your current beliefs, what you think is true, if you've been led there by how you think?
Yeah, what she's asking is, do you think if you had everything you knew about Christianity wiped clean, and you woke up tomorrow morning with fresh eyes, you don't know anything about of Christianity, do you think you would arrive at the same conclusion you have right now?
If I was given the evidence, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know that it's not the answer you wanted. Me and Doug talked about this.
I wasn't expecting a certain answer. I'm just curious wanting to know.
We talked about this. So I think that the evidence from prophecy, I think the evidence from the historical evidence that supports the scriptures, the coherence of the scriptures, the fact that when I take a biblical worldview and I compare it to life, I go, that really is the way the world looks. All these things are very impactful and very important to me. And those things still exist, even if I forget about them. So why wouldn't I come back to the same beliefs I have now?
So if you're born in like a Hindu family and then you're taught how to think differently, and you started to, grow up and you looked at the one of their Bhagavad Gita or something, I think, and you said, this really matches up with what I see with reality.
Yeah.
Would you be true in believing that?
It doesn't match up, though. That's the problem. Yeah.
But you would, find reasons for why that was true, wouldn't you?
Yeah, the Hindu thinks it matches up.
I think you're assuming something pretty negative about me to think.
This is more hypothetical. I'm not specifically trying to be negative, but I think this is really good and insightful for
I'll find them
people to be able to think about their own beliefs.
Mike,
I'm sorry. Could you say that again? Hold on, wait. Sorry, Violet. Could you say that again? I missed the last thing.
I think it's really good, a good way for people to be reflective about why they truly believe what they believe, how they've come to that position, and how they really know whether they're right. I'm not saying there's nothing is true. I'm not like a solipsist or anything, but at some point you sort of have to wonder.
I'll find reasons, though. After I said there aren't the sufficient reasons to believe Hinduism as there are.
People do it all the time with the gay thing. You said, people are always looking for what correlates with their, their belief.
Well, I agree that people have a tendency for, confirmation bias.
How can you be
everybody's
so confident? Then that's not you. And even if you are really confident, do you leave a little bit of room so that you can sometimes, check back and see, like, is this really it?
I'm definitely open to being shown that I'm wrong, but
how do you balance out your beliefs?
The way that I do this is I show that there's qualitative differences, like actual factual differences between the things that are evidence for Christianity versus evidence for, say, any other, you name it, religion. And now when you look at these actual things, you can actually put them on a table and look at them and say, okay, here's the differences. I now have justification for believing the Christian Bible to be true, whereas I do not have the same justification for the Bhagavad Gita, or the Book of Mormon, or the Quran, or any of these other things. These are qualitative differences. There's an assumption made by a lot of people that all religions have basically the same information and the same reasons for belief in those religions, and that's just not true. That's kind of a naive perspective.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike, that there are definitely differences. We've talked about this before. You hear the comment often, or at least I do, that Christianity is the only religion that says fill in the blank. But uniqueness doesn't make something true. And we've talked about how different religions, they look at the Bible, 66 books written over 2,000 years by 40 authors. They view it as inconsistent, and you view it as consistent. You just talk to a rabbi, an Orthodox Jew, they'll tell you that the New Testament's not God's word. You talk to a Muslim, they'll tell you the New Testament's not God's word. You talk to a Hindu.
But I'm also not basing it on
I know,
a rabbi told me so.
I know, but
so then that shouldn't defeat my belief either.
No, but my point is this. Yeah. They are as confident as you. They are as sincere as you. They believe they have done their epistemological duties just like you. And they are looking at the evidence like you have looked at the evidence, and they've come to a different conclusion. And what Violet and I are saying is that maybe and this is an honest question, maybe there's a better way of arriving at truth than how we've been doing it.
Yeah. So let me point out some things, though. Do I weigh my confidence as evidence or reason to believe? Nope. And you said they're as confident as me. That's great. But I'm not using that as a reason for being Christian. I'm confident.
They're as confident as you as because they have just as much evidence as they see that this correlates with what I believe.
They think they may think they do, but if you're saying
and the same could be the same for you. You think you do.
But let's just be clear. There's a difference between them having evidence and them saying they have evidence or thinking they do. So this is what Doug said. He says, they're as confident as you. They're as sincere as you. They think they've done their epistemological duty, just like you think you have. None of these things are reasons why I say you should believe Christianity, or I say I can show that it's true. What I've said is, here's specific prophecies in the Bible that are true. I've taken the hardest challenges of supposed contradictions in the Bible, made 3 full videos about it, answering these supposed contradictions, the hardest ones I could find. In other words, I am provably doing my epistemological duty to the best of my ability.
I'm going to say something now, and it's potentially very offensive, but
okay, it won't offend me.
I think the real reason you believe is none of those things you just mentioned. I think the real reason you believe is from one video I watched, and it was a while back, so correct me if I'm wrong, but you had a stepfather, correct?
Yeah.
And if I'm right, your stepfather did not treat you well.
True.
And I remember you saying something, and I'm paraphrasing, but you said something that it impacted me. You said that I needed God to get through that, or something
well,
like
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember saying that. But let me say
experience, that negative experience,
yeah,
led you down this path.
Okay. Can I say something to that?
Yeah, go ahead, and tell me if I've misrepresented you at all.
I think you misrepresented me in 2 ways. Let me offer them. One, my issues with my stepdad or whatever was going on at home, that kind of stuff, wasn't why I first believed. 2, I have more than one reason for believing, and trying to boil it down to one reason is just not accurate.
No, I'm not trying to, but I'm saying a primary reason. That's sort of like the impetus, the first push of the ball down the hill to get you to where you are today. For everyone has a story. I'm not saying that, like, I have a story, Violet has a story, that, and it shapes who we are. It shapes the paths we go down. And when we're talking about this thing called truth, which Violet and I value greatly, just like you do, we share that in common, that we value truth.
Yes. I know you're confident that you value truth, and you think you've done your epistemological duty that says that you value truth.
We could say the same thing, but yeah, let's go on.
Yeah. The point is they're baseless claims at that point. Yeah.
Well, I hope you can take my word for
it. You value truth. You definitely value truth. Both of you value truth, but I don't think that you are consistent in believing true things.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And I think an example for Doug would be his belief in the the gospel narratives are plays, or that the mythicist stuff, or being gullible when it comes to certain of those issues we
I
talked
don't
about
think you
before.
really know what I believe, but anyhow, my point is that since we as humans are fallible, and we make mistakes all the time, and we see things. A lot of my presuppositional Calvinist buddies agree with me that how we were raised, the culture we're in, shapes how we even view evidence. And you and I talked about this earlier on how, prophecies was a big deal to you. And
yeah, it is.
But we both know that there are hundreds of thousands of scholars out there who looked at the exact same prophecies you do. And they do this for a living, and they don't come to the same conclusion you do. In other words, they're non-believers. Mm-hmm. Why is that?
But are you're familiar with argument from authority, right?
Yes.
And do you think that an argument from authority is a fallacious argument?
No, not always.
Okay. So when you cite hypothetical scholars, hundreds of thousands, which obviously is not true, who disagree with me.
What do you mean? That's obviously
there
not
aren't
true.
even hundreds of thousands of scholars that have even looked at these topics
in the world.
In the world, yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong, but there's a lot of people in this world.
Yeah, there's billions, but I mean, how many of them do you think are scholars, and how many of the scholars have looked at biblical prophecy from a scholarly perspective? You're getting to a relatively small number of people, but
I just sort of took it colloquially, but now that you're saying that, 7 billion people or so, I'm starting to think, there could potentially be 100,000 scholars in this world, but that's
no. It's the question isn't how many scholars there are. The question is hundreds of thousands of scholars.
Okay, I'm willing to strike that from the record.
These issues of prophecy.
Let's say 1,000. Let's say 1,000. Would you go for 1,000? Would you accept 1,000?
Let me finish. And who not only disagree with you, but who have looked into it and researched into it from a scholarly perspective. I mean, obviously that's not true. But anyways, that's an argument from authority. We have hypothetical smart people who disagree with you, Mike. That doesn't mean anything to me. There's also scholars who agree with me, but I don't quote them simply on the basis of them being scholars that agree with me.
You quoted a whole bunch of research studies earlier from professionals.
Yeah, but not because they're for professionals, but because they're studies and they have specific evidence to point out.
And so do these biblical scholars. They've
name the scholar, name the prophecy that he disproves, and I'm happy to look into it and give it a very fair and intelligent reading and consideration.
Haven't you done that yourself already?
Yeah, and I haven't seen it.
Okay, but why do you think?
So,
where
I think I've done more work than you on this subject.
Oh, I'm admitting that. I'm giving you all the credit for that you've done more work than me.
But I'm not saying I'm right because of that. But what I'm saying is, I think you're using hypothetical smart guys to just discount what I'm trying to present to you as evidence.
But why do you think these guys did? What have they missed that you didn't?
I don't know. They're hypothetical. Tell me the guy you're talking about, and I'll tell you what he missed.
You really need a name? Okay, I'll give you a name after we're done.
Here's a thought. Like we could talk again sometime. You give me, let's pick one prophecy, and let's talk about just one, because more than one it just gets confusing, right? And we'll talk about one of the major prophecies that I dealt with in my video series, where I have 10 videos on weeks on prophecy.
Tovia
and
Singer.
You pick one and
there's a name.
Huh?
Tovia Singer.
Okay, I have actually listened to him talk about these prophecies. I researched into Jewish objections to Jesus, specifically to prophecy, in preparation for the series. So it's probably already in the series. I actually dealt with these objections in my video series. What I'm saying is, you're like, where's the evidence? And I'm like, it's right here. And you go, yeah, but smart people don't like it.
What has Tovia Singer missed?
Well, okay, what specific prophecy do you want to talk about?
In general, what has he missed? Like, what do you think is the problem?
Okay, so let's be specific, right? Tovia Singer has missed the fact that the suffering servant of Isaiah 52 and 53 is the Messiah. He wants to say it's Israel, but the context is that Israel is the one who sinned, and the suffering servant is the one who's suffering on behalf of Israel. All we have sinned and fall astray. All we like sheep have gone astray, right? But the chastisement of our peace is upon him. So there's a clear distinction between Israel.
Do you speak fluent Hebrew? Do you
No.
read? He does. If I'm an atheist and I was to believe what a Hebrew text, the original text was, should I go to him or to you?
I think if you want It's an irrelevant question. It doesn't even apply. But and notice this, Doug. Notice that your
It was
answer
written in Hebrew.
to my clear explanation of a place where Tovia Singer gets it wrong on prophecy. Your response is to ask me if I know fluent Hebrew. That is a dodge.
No, it isn't.
That is a total subject change, and it's unrelated. But if you want a guy who speaks Hebrew, look into Dr. Michael Brown.
You basically
he's debated Tovia Singer.
I know, appeal to authority, right, Michael Brown?
No. You said who would I go to? I would encourage you to listen to Dr. Michael Brown. He debated Tovia Singer, and he wrote a 4-volume series answering Jewish objections to Jesus, and he deals specifically with all those topics, and he's fluent in Hebrew.
Is there any chance you're mistaken in your view of the prophecies?
In some particulars, oh yeah, I could be wrong on some particular detail. Is there any chance that I'm completely wrong on
one prophecy?
On all of this stuff?
No,
I don't
one.
see.
Is it possible that you're incorrect on your interpretation or whatever of one prophecy?
I could be wrong on some detail,
but not on the. Okay, a prophecy is not a prophecy. If there's one detail that you're incorrect on, then shouldn't you doubt the whole prophecy, just that whole one prophecy?
You asked if I was wrong, not if the prophecy was wrong.
Right. Could you be wrong in your interpretation of the prophecy?
Yes.
Okay. Could you be wrong about your interpretation of the prophecy you just mentioned?
In some detail, absolutely, I could be wrong, and I stand to be shown where I'm wrong. Does that mean I'm wrong, or that I should withhold my opinion after carefully looking into it? No, that would be silly.
So, do you believe that then Tovia Singer could be right?
No, he's clearly wrong, because I've heard the specific things he says, and they're not right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I have a quick question right before we go, please.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes.
It's been 2 hours.
Okay. I thought of this right before we started talking about truth, and we got in this evidence thing, which is a great, sort of segue into. So, if hypothetically, if you, found that the evidence that you use to believe in your Christian faith, how much evidence would you have to lose before you started to doubt Christian belief?
Okay. Well, there's rather a mountain of information on the topic.
Let's say like 100 things that you said was like, this is like, clear thing. We had all these prophecies and stuff. And, if we just counted up on our fingers, we was like, that's about 100 things that we just lost. Would you, start to doubt? Would you lose your faith? Would it stay the same? Would it increase? Yeah. Would you look for, why you're, getting this wrong?
Yeah, I would definitely be bothered if I suddenly found out that a whole bunch of the reasons why I say Christianity is true were wrong. I would then have to reevaluate everything. Yeah.
So if you had to reevaluate everything, is there a potential that you could lose your belief?
Yeah, well, I'm a human, so in that sense, yeah.
Where do you think you might be if you lost your belief?
I mean, that'd be a roller coaster to go on, that's for sure. So let's say I gave Doug an example one of the times we talked, and it was that if you showed that the Old Testament passages, that let's say that every prophecy I quote, we find definitive evidence from papyrologists and paleographers, whatever, all these guys, and they go, we can prove that all these prophecies were written after the events happened. And then there was real proof. That would completely devastate me.
I'll let you and Doug have the last word.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just catching up on chat. Looks like
I think it's just a good thing. I'm glad. Thank you, Violet, for coming on. Thank you for letting me confront you on those issues, and I reciprocate.
I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to end this and build a bridge.
Yeah.
I think.
Why can't we be friends?
We can be friends.
I think I think what I said in the beginning that I do think that you believe sincerely, honestly, and you have the best intentions in mind. I don't doubt that at all with you because I've known you a little while, and I think that you should never ever be silenced by atheists or any other religions or secularists, those evil people who say, oh, you Christians just shut up already. No, I don't think. I think we should hear you out and listen to your views and your opinions. And you made some great ones tonight, and about for me, and again, it's like what the fourth video you said, Mike, I should be watching.
Okay, for the series on homosexuality, it's the third and the fourth video. The third video deals with the ideas of being born that gay. It deals with statistical evidences and the secular case against homosexuality.
Oh, and your
That's what you'd be
your
interested in.
your YouTube channel is just your name, Mike Winger.
Mike Winger, like a bird, wings.
Do you say Winger or Winger?
Winger? I don't know. Whichever one. It's your name. How often do you think about how you say your name? You know? Yeah, it's Winger. It's got a G.
Yeah, usually people from the East Coast say Winger, right? And people in the Midwest say Winger.
I don't know. I think it's Vinger if you go back far enough.
Oh yeah, German.
But yes, then the fourth video deals with pro-gay slogans, the common stuff like "love wins" or "who are you to judge" and all that kind of stuff that I think is more along the lines of what most people are thinking about the topic. Yeah. But yeah. If I could say this is Doug, I enjoy talking with you. I appreciate the opportunity to come on. I thank you for inviting me back. You don't intentionally look for the most foolish people you can interview, and I appreciate that. But I think you're massively wrong, and I'd like to try to tell you why. But Violet, I hope if nothing else, without me being artificial or cheesy, that you can hopefully realize I really actually do care about you.
I agree. I totally think that you think that.
But I think I care about you. But I do. And I think that if there ever comes a time where you say this is just a perception, it's not a reality, that and you ever want to talk, I'm here. I'd be here, even if it's just to disagree.
Got it.
Likewise, Doug, if you ever decide to, abandon the atheist camp.
Oh, I forgot one. Before you go, I forgot one good evolutionary reason for homosexuality. Because if you are going out with someone your own size, you double your wardrobe.
I'm wrong. I've been wrong this whole time, and I never saw it till now.
And that helps procreate, Yeah. Okay, guys, thanks for hanging out. We had close to 70 people at one time. I wasn't watching the chat the whole time, and it's for the most part it seemed fairly civil, but there was a few abrasions there. But
yeah. Oh, GPH there. Yes, I am related to Deborah Winger. Interestingly enough.
Is that your wife?
No. The actress.
Oh, is
come on, you're not that young. You're not that young, are you, Doug? Yeah.
I don't know. Do I know Deborah Winger? What is she in?
Old movies. I can't think of one right now.
Are you the type of guy who just watches black and white movies?
No, I watch Doctor Who. That's what I like to watch.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, good night, all.
Peace.
Thanks for hanging out.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Take care.